Am I the idiot for telling my mom that I'm as good as an orphan now? My 17F parents divorced when I was little because of my mom's cheating, and when my maternal side found out about the cheating, she was immediately cut off from her own family, no money, no help, no nothing. She ended up marrying her affair partner and went for full custody. That was eventually granted because she was my mom. I despised her because of that. I was unable to see my dad as much as I wanted, and between the two of them, he was the better parent. I also liked my stepmom way more than my stepdad, and in time, even than my own mom. During the first years, my mom used me to get her family back until she had her own kids after that. My mom and stepdad practically ignored me and only treated me good whenever they needed a babysitter. My mom also tried to make me stop visiting my dad. When I turned 13, I was able to choose with who I wanted to live with, and I moved in with my dad. This enraged my mom as she and her kids trashed my room, but I didn't care because I was happy to be free. Living with my dad was way different, and I even began to call my stepmom's mom. I lived with them for 3 years, until last year when my stepmom died of COVID and my dad followed after. I had to go back to my mom's house. I'll admit, she's better now. She apologized for how she behaved because she attended therapy after I was gone. The house is peaceful, I get my own space. My mother is a loving one, and her husband even behaves, and when he doesn't she defends me, but I can't seem to shake the past feelings. From my POV, I'm an orphan. I lost both my parents and I'm forced to live with someone I don't like at all. Last week my mom asked me what I wanted for my birthday and I said nothing. That I was going to spend it at the cemetery because it's the first one without my parents and I'm not ready to do something yet. She was taken aback and said that she was still here and therefore, I still had a parent. I just shrugged and said that I was as good as an orphan now. She cried and my stepdad sent me to my room after calling me in. Please avoid any give your mother a chance, it seems she has really changed, because I will not. I'm out as soon as I turn 18. Not interested in forming a relationship with her. Comment 1. I'm glad she got therapy and it's at least safe for you to be there, but you're not an asshole for your feelings. Her being better now doesn't erase the past. Unless you said it specifically to hurt her, you're not an asshole for being honest with her. She's allowed to be upset that you don't see her as a mother, and it doesn't make her an asshole either. She would be an asshole for her past actions, but that's not what we're judging today. Nah. There's no winners in this situation, unfortunately. The stepdad is definitely an asshole though. He sent you to your room for being honest? And she has to defend you from him when he doesn't behave? Jeez. Comment 2. NTA. Your biomom trashed your room after you left. That is not the act of someone loving or stable. She can be better now, but that doesn't change the fact that she did terrible things and lost your trust. I would disregard the negative comments. People who have not lived in a similar situation before don't know what it's like to have divorced parents or to have a fraught relationship with a parent. You are not a bad child for being hurt by the things your biomother did to you. You are traumatized and grieving, and I'm so sorry for your losses. Someone mentioned therapy. I know culturally there's a lot of stigma, but when you find the right therapist, they can really help. If you're on insurance through your biomom, you might consider looking into that while you're covered. It helps to process stuff to talk to someone who's not invested in the situation. Hang in there. Now for the next story. Am I the idiot for telling people about my mom's affair? Last year my mom told me that she wanted to get a divorce from my dad. At the time my dad and I did not get along. We couldn't hold a conversation without one of us getting angry. When my mom laid out her reasons, I thought they were good ones. I said, if it would make her happy, she should go for it. One day Dad sat me and my brother down. He said he was sorry for how he had treated us. He was going to start therapy on his own and couples therapy with my mom to try and make the relationship work. I never saw my dad cry until that day. My brother and I watched my dad work to be the perfect husband. He practically waited on her hand and foot and let her travel to our home state as much as she wanted. We moved for my dad's work 15 years ago. Then we started to notice Mom being weird. She guarded her phone, she was constantly texting someone, and she once answered a FaceTime call and ran to hide, holding her finger to her lips to tell the person on the line to be quiet. When my dad started dating, my mother was furious. She constantly asked me about his new girlfriend, referred to as NG, and tried to get information. I got angry and told her that she should move on. Then, the bombshell came. My mom called and said, I've been having an affair with boyfriend, referred to as DB for douchebag. I first cheated on your dad before we moved. I told your father after Christmas. It suddenly made sense why my dad had stopped trying to save the marriage. He had been married to my mom for 20 years. He was devastated. Recently, I was at a town event with my mom for my high school. My mom had to leave the event early and my friend Amelia agreed to drive me home. The entire time that we were at the event with Amelia, my mom was talking shit about my dad, saying, "You can only take so much before you leave, and that's why I left." Once my mom left, Amelia asked me how I was since my mom told her that my dad and NG had started dating before my mom left. I was furious. I said, "You know my mom cheated on my dad, right?" Amelia's face went white. No, my mom had told her parents my dad had started dating NG before my mom left. I couldn't believe it. My mom has always tried to play the victim, but this was so much worse. My dad was the only one that tried to save their marriage. I started talking to Amelia's dad later. He asked how I liked NG. I said she was nice and I liked her kids. Her dad asked how I liked DB. I said, "I honestly don't like him." He asked me how I could give NG a chance, but not DB. I told him how DB was responsible for my parents' divorce, because he was the other man. DB knows that my dad exists. Amelia's dad said, "Well, that changes things. I haven't told my mom that I've told people the truth. She and I used to be really close and I'm the only one to look out for her mental health, but it infuriates me that she is making my dad a villain." Comment 1. NTA since your mom was lying about things trying to make your dad the bad guy. But do keep in mind that just because your dad changed his attitude towards the end of the marriage, IR doesn't take back from 20 years of a bad marriage. If your mom was unhappy for a long time, then she was right to get a divorce. I know she didn't handle things well by cheating. I'm just saying be careful when you say things like, "My dad was the only one trying to save the marriage." Your mom tried for 20 years and your dad only changed when he realized he was losing her. Your mom is really wrong here, but don't put your dad in a pedestal either. Comment 2. I couldn't really put it into the post too much, but my dad knows that he made mistakes. My mother didn't tell him that she was unhappy for 20 years. She just silently stewed about it and told it all to me right before she left. I was slightly shocked by it all but wasn't surprised. My dad and I still have a very rocky relationship. I understood where she was coming from initially. It was just watching my dad try everything he could to change and my mother being unsatisfied with it all, not even acknowledging the changes he was making that hurt. At the end of the day, no one really wants their parents to get a divorce, so my brother and I were happy that our dad, the parent that we were told by our mother wouldn't try, was trying. Now, or the next story. Am I the idiot for pretending I don't know my mom? To be honest, all of my 4 siblings do this, but I'm just questioning myself since I feel a little bad. I'm 21M, I have 4 siblings 24F, 22M, 18M, and 16F. When I was 15 my mom, 44F, and dad, 45M, divorced because dad found out she had a long-term affair with his brother. They're together now and have a 5-year-old boy together. We've basically disowned our mother since that happened. She has made many attempts to reconnect and make amends, but we've rejected her every time. The only one who is in low contact with her is my little sis. They talk over the phone, but nothing else. My 18-year-old brother is the one who hates her the most since some people have questioned his paternity since the affair was uncovered. My mom tried to force the youngest ones to go to her place, but they made her life hell, so she gave up. My eldest siblings say that they've seen her many times and they just ignore her when she wants to say hi and have a conversation with them. In these 6 years, I've only seen my mom like 3 times. She wants to start a conversation, but I just treat her like a random person. I was at the grocery on Tuesday and then my mom was with a friend of hers when she saw me. She and her friend came to me and my mom said, "Hi, honey, it's been a long time since I saw you. How have you been?" So, I just said, "Sorry, have we met?" Her face turned red and she just walked away. My grandma, her mom, says I was TA for doing that. I feel like a little since everyone says she has been inconsolable ever since, my siblings say it's fine and that she deserves it. A part of me thinks this is what homewreckers and cheaters deserve, but on the other hand, she is my mom and it still hurts me seeing her suffering. I also think I went too far because my siblings only ignore her. She called my sister crying saying that she doesn't know what else to do to have our forgiveness. Please tell me if I'm TA, be blunt. Comment 1. I'm gonna say light ESH bordering NTA because it sounds like you may have done this because you felt like it's what you should do to appease your siblings and maybe not something you wanted to do. And I could be reading this situation wrong too. Obviously there's lots of details left out. You have a right to have whatever relationship, and lack thereof, you want with your mom, and it might be good to look inward and check with yourself if you actually don't want any relationship with your mom or if you just feel like you shouldn't because of your family situation. She is obviously and indisputably the asshole for cheating, but this post also doesn't explain at all if she was a good mother to you besides that. Although I get the feeling with most of her children not speaking to her she may not have been. There's just a lot of black and white thinking on this sub, and real life is more complicated than that. So I think if this is the boundary you want with your mom and if she's treated you badly in TA, but if you're just doing this BC, the rest of your family is then ESH, and maybe figure out if you individually want any relationship your mom, despite what your siblings would think. Comment 2. My mom did it. My brother 16 at the time caught them and failed all his college exams. He was told it was a one-off and it wasn't. When my dad eventually found out 4/5 years later, he had to learn that me and my brother knew but were too scared to tell him, because my uncle told us he would tell my dad we were making it up and blackmailing him. Then he and my dad has to deal with both my mother and uncle denying it, his mother refusing to take sides and losing that side of the family, to the point my mother, since divorced from him, was allowed to show up at my nan's funeral, and everyone thought my dad was a bitter and paranoid man. My mom still likes to play the bigger person role because she is not bitter and still cares for my dad, who according to her can't let the past go. She fucking ruined his life. It's one thing to cheat, but that person's sibling? It's soul destroying. NTA. My mom did it. My brother 16 at the time caught them and failed all his college exams. He was told it was a one-off and it wasn't. When my dad eventually found out 4/5 years later, he had to learn that me and my brother knew but were too scared to tell him, because my uncle told us he would tell my dad we were making it up and blackmailing him. Then he and my dad has to deal with both my mother and uncle denying it, his mother refusing to take sides and losing that side of the family, to the point my mother, since divorced from him, was allowed to show up at my nan's funeral, and everyone thought my dad was a bitter and paranoid man. My mom still likes to play the bigger person role because she is not bitter and still cares for my dad, who according to her can't let the past go. She fucking ruined his life. It's one thing to cheat, but that person's sibling? It's soul destroying. NTA.